13signsastrology.com. So they got like a host of computers that control the numbers as they visa through different machines. A lot of this comes from via outer space. Some of it comes via the Earth. Some of it comes from different people's physical bodies and entities, and these numbers can fluctuate and change. A lot of times they're actually written days before they actually print, meaning that yes, you can literally visa and predict these numbers if you're able to see the script before they're predicted, which I said again is usually sometime days, if not weeks or months even, before they're released in the present. And this is done through essentially a scenario where you begin to remote view numbers and you begin to remote view the future. And of course this can be open to change and speculation, meaning that of course this can be predicted. Essentially this could be hacked and a person can essentially change their script, but then they will be going against a time code or capsule where they're going against the future. If they were to do that, meaning that, yeah, you can try to change it once you know somebody's watching you or hacking you, but it's usually not successful. And what happens is that usually the whole ritual ends in some type of a catastrophe. So what happens is that if you don't, there's different levels to it. So like, if there's a scenario going on where there's numbers being visa and there's certain people that are not aware of it, this does not exclude the scenario, meaning that it's still a live scenario, meaning that the parties that aren't aware of it and that aren't viewing it are not out of it just because they weren't looking at it at the time or they weren't aware of what was going on as far as these numbers, and so they weren't able to influence it. However, there still will be accountability held with these people because of the fact that, again, this is taking place in past, present, and future. So even though they aren't held accountable and they weren't able to see it in the past, they may have to eventually, they will find out about it in the future some kind of way. Or if they don't, somebody close to them might. And what happens is this creates a ripple effect. And this is how miscalculations and misjudgments happen. So what happened with this particular, the ones drop, and I'm going to give you this, I'll use this for an example with the Astros game. And as you guys know, I said watch the Astros. So the Mariners I thought it would happen yesterday. They went ahead and dropped the ones. However, this would have turned yesterday. Remember, it's always 1 and 2. So yesterday, this would have been a great loss. And today, since this was the second game and the Astros did lose, this was a loss, but it was not as much of a loss. And it actually, when you see the second hand, and it's the same kind of like score for one team, meaning that the Astros didn't score in both hands, this turns into a computer offset, meaning that it's a date or a check that was due directly to the Mariners anyway, and the zero hand is offset. So now on this hand, the Astros will essentially buy in if there's another hand played or if another game played, or if it's not, then they'll just move on. But if there's another game played, the Astros will essentially buy in through this hand or whatever because of the fact that this would happen on the second game, essentially is what it is. So if it's not another hand played, then it's a buy. But if it is and the Astros win, they can take it as a loss and a payout, or if they lose again, it could turn into a total loss, and it could be declined as far as a buy if there is a third game, if the Astros don't score any points, of course. And this is simple mathematics and arithmetic that, I use essentially to come up with these figures. And this didn't really turn into a big loss because that's what I want to kind of point out, because it happened on the second hand or the second day or game 2. So since it happened on game 2, it didn't turn into as much of a loss. And actually, since yesterday was a game for the Astros, it was a game for the Astros yesterday because of the fact that it turned out to be 4-0 today. It can actually turn into a profit again for the Astros, depending on if they had collateral down. Like, for instance, myself, Yesterday, I didn't have anything down as far as mercantile or collateral by hand, but I had a lot of credit down. And it ended up being 4-0, so that credit essentially would be out. It would be debited, but it would be debited with a less of a loss. Had I, you know what I'm saying? Had it been a 1-0, it would have been total loss. So it was actually, like I said, less of a loss. And then today, it debits out at 1-0. But again, the credit from yesterday wasn't all debited out because we Visa'd over $10,000 yesterday in a day. It's one of our records, believe it or not. So today it turns into a credit, essentially, because we didn't Visa that much today yet. We're only up to about like $4,000 or something like that in a day. But again, it's not a loss to us. So that's essentially how it's. That's the ticket on it for the Astros, and then they can decide to profit share and gain back through trading. Before this day is out, it could actually still become a profit, y'all. And that's how you Visa, and it doesn't always, and it won't always be that gravy and that essentially like that. The reason why I turned in like that is because it took so long for the ones to drop. So it would be in the best interest, of course, for those other teams to have a couple of more to drop. But even if it doesn't, again, since it Visa in and it was even, meaning that was the second hand, it's going to be, like I said, essentially taken care of and accepted for value by myself, because we just made on the side a huge amount of money up here just in Chicago off of a underground gold deal we did that was even worth another $10,000. So that's going to be another profit unless we see another one for us. So we're counting that as our one, outside of monetization and all of that, a gold deal that we did here with the water. Let you guys know I'm not making this shit up. As you can see, the water. We did a deal with this, and that's our gold deal, and I'll get more into that, accepting that for value. So that's paid off for us, but we're going to still count out to see how much we can make, and we'll keep you posted on the future market shares. Gold is definitely made a profit, and we plan on continuing to make residual earnings. So as always, stay vigilant. I'm going to come back up with more. Just wanted to give a brief review, and I'll come back up with a little bit more. Namaste. Hotep.